Hey everybody, Austin Rohr here, and today you're watching me spin some laps at I-90 Motorsports Park over in eastern Washington here in the Pacific Northwest. And this was my first real time out on a track on the YFZ, and it was also a good opportunity for me to test out two changes that I made since I put the build video up, which was addressing my handlebar situation and addressing my rear shock. You know, I got to go out and ride probably about 75%, you know, not really stressed too much about making any of the big hits on the track or anything like that. You know, and I definitely wasn't pushing it in the corners either. I just wanted to kind of get out, get a feel for things and, you know, get kind of comfortable and familiar with everything. And really, you know, I wanted to make this video as kind of a follow-up to that MX build because I did have those two complaints about my handlebars and about my rear shock. So what I did for the handlebars was to make them a little bit less rigid. I added the Precision Shock and Vibe clamps to the stock steering stem. And for me personally, I'm not a big fan of the anti-vibe stems, and especially, you know, if I ran maybe an anti-vibe stem by itself, I might enjoy it. But I don't like running it with like a Precision Shock and Vibe or with a flex bar. I actually feel like I get too much flex. Especially, you know, like when you have a flex bar, you get that side-to-side movement where they're independent of each other. And it's not a bad thing necessarily, and some people might enjoy it. But what I've found and what I've heard, you know, other riders talk about as well is you get so much softness that even though you're not getting like the harsh hits or the feedback, what you are getting is, you know, this almost like need to you know, be moving your arms more, adjusting your grip more because everything's jumbling around. It's not staying really put. So using the stock stem with the ODI oversized bar at kind of a taller bend, and then having the precision clamp, which raises it about 3/8 of an inch, really put it at the perfect height and the perfect rigidity for me. And then I put that clamp in the furthest forward position on the steering stem and rolled those bars back just about a one mark past your kind of neutral mark on your bars, and that really put them just in the right spot and made everything feel very comfortable. And having them kind of far forward like that, and not too high, you know, combined especially with like the factory 43 pegs that are so low, really opens up that rider cockpit and makes me feel like I'm more naturally in the attack position and I'm less prone to dropping my elbows. So I really do think that made a big difference. And then in the rear, I added the Teixeira Tech MX Linkage, which helped drop that rear down, kind of take away some of that stink buggy feeling I felt like I was getting from the stock rear shock. And it went from having a shock where I couldn't even get close to using the full travel that was, you know, that's available to me, to getting it to bottom out, which you know, when you hear bottoming out, you think that's bad, but in my case, you know, I wanted to be able to bottom out because that meant that I was getting the complete travel out of my rear shock. And so I threw that MX Linkage on there. It's a completely stock rear, and they do recommend, you know, you can run the stock rear or a long travel rear shock, and then with the stock rear, they recommend some people might want to lower the spring rate by just basically drop it down one spring rate in the rear to complement their linkage. But in my case, I didn't have to do that. All I did was I had to take my high-speed compression and turn it one full turn. I had it basically almost all the way backed off, and I had my low speed all the way back down to just one click from fully soft. And then my preload's all the way backed out. So I left the preload and the low speed alone. I turned my high speed in one full turn, and then I turned my high speed up in the front as well, about a half turn. And those two things together really complemented each other and made both those shocks work really well to where I'm riding at the track that you're seeing me at now. It felt like I was riding on glass. I was never actually bottoming, but I was feeling like I was getting a lot of travel out of my shocks. And at the same time, while I wasn't feeling a lot of feedback, I could tell that the wheels were staying planted to the ground. They weren't deflecting or bouncing around or anything like that. And that was, you know, that's a good thing because that means I'm getting the maximum amount of traction possible. You know, I'm not losing contact in the front or the rear. And then on, you know, like big jump hits and things like that, you know, I wasn't bottoming. I couldn't feel my heels dragging on the ground, you know, or anything like that. So, you know, it was just the perfect balance of like real soft and real supple and soaking up all the bumps. And this was a rough track, and I really didn't feel like it was rough at all. But at the same time, you know, when you have, you know, kind of harder landings, it wasn't an issue at all. It really soaked that stuff up good. So I'll be testing both of these products out more as the year goes on, and I'll probably run them for a long time. But right now I recommend them, especially if you're a guy who's like starting from stock and just trying to make kind of incremental upgrades to get to where you want to be. And I'll keep you guys updated for sure. When this video posts, it'll be about 4 or 5 days before the actual race season starts for me here. So I'll have some helmet cam footage that I'll be taking at the races. And then I can obviously, you know, keep kind of adding updates to this stuff and filling you in on what my thoughts are. So anyways, make sure to stay tuned, and yeah, you'll be seeing lots more soon.